Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Social Studies. Today, I'm going to be going over Jamestown, which was the first permanent settlement in the 13 colonies, and that was located in Virginia. What you're going to do when you're finished watching this video is you're going to answer two questions in your chat box in Google Classroom. So your first question is, how would you describe the interactions between the Native Americans and the Europeans? Your second question is, what were some of the advantages and disadvantages of the location of Jamestown? So you're going to answer those two questions when I'm finished. Also, I'm not going to read these slides to you guys. I'm just going to go over them. What I want you to do is pause the video each time I go to a new slide. That way you can read it on your own. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'm just going to go over it. So we're going to start with an introduction to Jamestown. Um, So we're starting in Europe with King James I, and he issued a charter, which is sort of like an agreement, to the Virginia Company in 1606 to explore this new world. And remember, the new world is America. Now, it's not America yet. It's not even the 13 colonies, but we're going to get there. So that's why we call it the New World. King James, he didn't want the Spanish people to get there first. He wanted that advancement over the Spain. So he wanted to one up the Spain. So that's why he's in a hurry to get there first. Also, they wanted to find the Northwest Passage to China. They wanted an easier way to get to Asia and China, and they also wanted to trade more easily too. And they also wanted to spread Christianity to the native people. So that's an introduction to Jamestown to give you like the background. So they set sail, and it took them about 4 months to get there from December to April in 1607. And they picked Jamestown as their location. So this Virginia company was a group of men. They were wealthy, they were rich, they had lots of money, and we also call them the aristocrats. If you've ever seen the Aristocrats cartoon, it's about these aristocrats who live in the city and they're prim and proper, and then they meet friends who aren't as blessed as them. They're kind of scruffy. They don't have a lot of money. So that's how you can remember the aristocrats. So what they were planning was to establish this settlement in the New World for a profit. So they wanted to make money. They wanted to leave, make money, come back, and make even more money. So that was their purpose of leaving. Um, and they wanted to convince others to go for job opportunities. They wanted to be like, hey, we know how you can make some money, go with us. And they told everybody that they were going to search for gold and minerals. So that was another reason why they wanted to settle in this new world. So the location of Jamestown had some advantages and disadvantages. Like I said, it took them 4 months to get there. They arrived in April of 1607. Some of the advantages of why they picked Jamestown was it was up the James River, so it was kind of like a hiding place, and they thought that the Spanish people couldn't get to them, they couldn't attack them. And they also wanted protection from the Native Americans as well, because the Native Americans were here first, and that was the Powhatan tribe, is where they landed in Jamestown. That was theirs first, the Powhatan. It was large, so large ships could get there and they could port. It was deep, so they figured, hey, we could get here and we can trade easily. And it was also by swamp and rivers, which offered some protection from the Native Americans as well. Now, they also picked Jamestown, and it was a bad choice too. The land that they chose was swampy, so it was filled with mosquitoes. So if you've ever been bitten by mosquitoes, it's aggravating. And also, mosquitoes bring in lots of diseases. So it caused them to get sick with malaria, which is a disease. The land was swampy, so it wasn't very good to grow crops. And like I said, this land was used by the Powhatans, so that kind of made some conflicts between the Europeans and the native people. They also dug wells, which made them sick, and they drank the water, which was salty and it wasn't very good. So that made them sick as well. And they built a triangular fort as well to keep them away from the Native Americans and the Spaniards as well. So, like I said, when they got here, they landed on the Powhatan land, which is a Native American tribe, and the chief was Chief Powhatan. He was the leader of about 30 different tribes. He was a very powerful ruler. He allowed trade with the settlers at first to help them because he saw that they were dying. And then a drought came, which means they didn't give a whole lot of rainfall. So then they were given too much to the English. So then they got mad at them. So then they didn't trade anymore. So they had conflicts with them. And the native people believed that they share land and the Europeans didn't. They're like, hey, that's my land. We are not sharing that. No, that's mine. So the Native Americans didn't think like that. Also, the Native American people, they believed in spirits, in nature. The English Europeans didn't believe that. They believed in going to church and Christianity, which that was another conflict between the Powhatans and the Europeans as well. Now, Chief Powhatan's daughter is the famous Pocahontas as well, and we're going to learn about her in just a minute. So then the Europeans, after they've been there for a while, they go through a starving time. Now, that pretty much means that they're hungry and they're dying. Um, Now, these aristocrats, this Virginia company, this group of men, they didn't know how to farm. They didn't know how to live off the land. Remember, they're wealthy, but they really didn't think ahead about getting gold and minerals. That was all they were um, worried about. So they didn't think about, oh, well, we have to grow food and we have to live off this land. And they didn't bring enough resources with them. So they started starving. They didn't plan for the harsh winters. They spent too much time searching for gold and minerals instead of searching for food. And then they suffered from diseases like malaria from the mosquitoes. They were hungry, and then they were also being attacked by the Native Americans. So that was the starving time, which was really, really hard on the Europeans. Not very many Europeans survived until they're, they picked a new leader who was John Smith, and he was a soldier. So he's a very powerful leader. He knows how to get things done. And he pretty much told them, he that will not work shall not eat. So he taught them, hey, if you don't work, you're going to die. You're going to starve. So he made this law, and everyone started following it. And soon they realized, hey, we have to do all this. We have to grow all these crops or we're not going to make it. He was also saved by Pocahontas because he was kidnapped by Native Americans. And once their friendship, John Smith and Pocahontas, grew, that allowed the Native Americans, they allowed us to trade with them, with the Europeans. So that was a good relationship. So Pocahontas, so she was the daughter of Chief Powhatan. She saved John Smith. She also met John Rolfe, who we'll talk about in a minute, and they married each other. This allowed them to trade more easily as well. And also, their marriage allowed the Powhatan and the English later on to sign a peace treaty, which means they agree to no more war and they're going to live peacefully with each other. So, she married John Rolfe, Pocahontas did. So John Rolfe also kind of saved the Europeans as well. He figured out a way to grow tobacco easily in Jamestown. So this was their cash crop. So this may allow them to make more money. Um, so they brought in more settlers. It's bringing in more resources. They're selling it and trading it to the Europeans back in England and Europe. So it's making them more money. So they're prospering. Um, they're making more food. They're growing this tobacco. Um, but then they realize, hey, we're growing all this and we don't have enough people. So the Europeans in Jamestown decide to bring in indentured servants. And those are poor English people who agree to go on the trip from Europe to Jamestown, and they pay them back by working. So if they work for so many years, in return, they'll get land and clothing, and they kind of take care of them. So that was a way to bring more people in. But they soon realized, hey, these indentured service and us were still not keeping up. So then that's where slavery comes in. So the Europeans, it's kind of like a triangle, and you're going to learn about it. It's a triangular trade route. The Europeans went back to Europe, or the colonists from Jamestown went back to Europe. Um, and they got things to trade, so they took it to Africa and they picked up people against their will, and then they took them back to Jamestown and forced them to work against their will. It wasn't a pleasant interaction. They didn't take care of them very well. They were brought by ships. No laws allowed slavery until about 1662, so this wasn't a very good thing. And also, because of that, then we bring in more women and kids from Europe to Jamestown. So that means that Jamestown is flourishing. It's growing. We have families now. Um, so now they're going into, hey, we need laws. We need rules. We're going to have this permanent settlement. We need something to abide by, to follow. So then Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia, they came up with a group of men, particularly white men, and they had to own land to be in this government. So this was the first government in the 13 colonies, and this was called the House of Burgesses. And you're going to learn about that later on. The colonists could elect people to help them make laws, and the only people who are allowed to make the laws were the people who own land and if they were Caucasian or white. This was the first form of government in this new world. Okay? So, we've learned about Jamestown, how it all started, why the Europeans picked Jamestown as their location. There were some advantages and disadvantages. And also you learned about how the Native Americans and Europeans, how they interacted well with each other. Sometimes good, sometimes it was bad. So don't forget, you're going to answer those two questions in your class comment in your chat box in Google Classroom underneath Social Studies. And if you have any questions, make sure to let your social studies teachers know. All right, guys, have a great day. And remember, you are supposed to go and read these slides. So go back and pause the video if you need to go back or replay it to get the answers to the questions. Have a great day. Bye. Bye. Oh. Have a great day, guys.